Peace. This is Showbiz is, aka Aaron Calloway. Just a little about myself. I'm a English as a second language teacher. Basically, Francophone, West Africa. 7, 8 years experience. Changed my lifestyle and how I see the world by traveling and living abroad. Living abroad is the operative term. I was in a French-speaking environment, so I had to pick up a little French and a few more of the local languages in West Africa, specifically, but not limited to Cote d'Ivoire, Abidjan, major city, but also Burkina Faso, Senegal, and the Gambia, Ghana, Mali. Traveled extensively through West Africa. Love it. I took a skill that I was naturally born with, which is the English language, and I turned it into a way to provide myself. But here I am now back in the United States, and I still continue to share the gift of the English language with people. ESL is a field that I guess it's a good entry point for some people into the job world, but it's also a good way of making a second income, or someone who is retired getting into ESL provides extensive opportunities for a person. You can teach English as a second language in the United States. So that's why I'm kind of salty with the present administration, making it difficult for people to enter into the United States and become productive part of the United States, which is a traditional thing. Basically, they running away my clients. You can also teach English online. The online component is it's okay. All you need for that is a stable connection, maybe a microphone additional to your PC or your laptop. But while living, learning, and loving in West Africa, I got a glimpse of how developing and emerging economies are contributing to the world. During my tenure in West Africa as an ESL professor, I taught students that were prospective engineers. They traveled to schools such as Texas Tech, University of Alberta in Canada. German University, I think it's Stuttgart, as well as University of Wolverhampton and the University of Birmingham in the United Kingdom. Had those students and prepared them for the TOEFL. So had experience in teaching TOEFL as well as TOEIC. Business leaders in Abidjan. Such companies such as Habitat for Humanity, the African Development Bank, uh, several banks in Cote d'Ivoire, as well as government officials, military and police personnel, directors of zoos, ministers of the study of reptiles, heptologists, I believe, that's it. So a plethora of different people in Africa. But, you know, I've also taught a lot of people here in the United States, a lot of Arabic speakers, Syrian refugees, Ethiopians, Vietnamese, just people all over the world, which was one of my goals as a youth. I remember when I was young, I really just wanted to have pen pals. But with the advent of the World Wide Web, it's fairly easy to be in communication with people from all over the world. And I realized that dream by studying and being certified as a English as a second language teacher. Several components to that ESL teaching certificate. Teaching ESL in standard classrooms, but also teaching the TOEFL, which is a test that students have to pass in order to prove English equivalencies. I was so amazed that the majority of my students scored in the 80s, the 90s. I even had a couple students score 100 and even over 100. And these were basically Francophone students, and these students had to compete against students from places where English was a spoken language. And they scored as well as the students from India, China. I think the highest scoring students were Nigerians, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm very proud of my students that have gone on and living their dreams, living out their goals. Quiet as it's kept, English is the English language is a moneymaker. So that's a little bit of the formalities. But my academic interests rest in Africana Studies, Bachelor's of Science in African Studies, minor in Psychology, Master's degree in Divinity. It was particularly odd for me, but it was a vessel that allowed me to explore some of the theological concepts that went along with colonization all over the planet, not just Africa, but Asia as well, and certain parts of Southwest Asia. And in teaching ESL, you bring to it certain beliefs customs and culture to the situation. I remember my first application was through a British company, and I'm a United States citizen, American. And the guys from Britain, they loved the accent that I possess, which is probably will be typified as a Southern accent, maybe Midwestern. But they love that Black American swag. But my intent was always to teach a proper business language and lexicon, lingo, nomenclature, however you want to describe it. But these guys from Britain, they were always like, it's always good to teach in your native tongue, basically, with how you learn it. So for me, what I would do, I would find the best speakers that I knew. And a lot of those speakers just happen to come out of the African American community. Not limited to the African American community, because when I was teaching my students, because I knew that they were going to the UK, a lot of them were going to the UK, I included persons such as Winston Churchill, Neville Chamberlain. I would get these things from all sources. My American go-to people, they weren't limited to Barack Obama, John F. Kennedy, Bill Clinton, Malcolm X, just people that I thought were Louis Farrakhan, people that I thought were, good public speakers, had good diction, and people could clearly learn from these speakers without being bored, and and they learned something. I don't know, maybe I did mention it, but John F. Kennedy. For my students in Cote d'Ivoire, I showed them videos of John F. Kennedy hosting the longtime president of Cote d'Ivoire, Felix Houphouët-Boigny, and his wife when they were in D.C., Washington, D.C. Also showed them, his interactions with Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Sekou Touré of Guinea. All of these things, and it enhanced my knowledge of American history as well. So, as an ESL teacher in West Africa, I learned a lot about those emerging economies over there and those people. And particularly as an African American, a Black American, I was able to connect with my historical roots. And living as an African American on the African continent was somewhat of a catharsis, a venture, a normal modern lifestyle. And I was able to see that the differences in American culture versus African culture, they were not so far apart. People have different people activities, and as an African American, not seeing Africa as a artifact, but as a living, breathing, evolving entity, and my connection to it. So my worldview is a Pan-Africanist, Africanist worldview. And presently in the United States, amongst the sons and daughters of Africa, there is a debate about who we are, what we should be called. Are we African people? Are we indigenous people? Are we FBAs, ADOs, and all of these things? So these are the type of things that I was able to delve into. There are stages when you live in a foreign country. You know, you have stages where you are just euphoric and everything is good. Everything is, you know, it's exciting. And then there's some times where you know, you're homesick. You know, you want the things that you were raised on, the comforts of home, you know. And I left Africa to go to Africa. I wasn't a Coca-Cola drinker. I love Coke, you know, as my youth, but didn't drink it too much. Got to Africa, got addicted to it because it was something like home. Yes, you could get American products over there. They're a little bit more expensive or whatever. But yeah, I digress. But living in a modern Africa where the traditions and modernity, they both go hand in hand. It was a beautiful thing. Again, living there for 7-8 years, I experienced all facets of life over there. Births, deaths, weddings, some political violence. But I could say that, you know, as I traveled, I would see different phenotypes of African people. I could look at these people and say, hey, this is what the people in Jamaica look like. These are what the people in Bahamas look like. These are some Belizean people. These are different people. These are different people with African blood. And you can see the root of it. I saw relatives walking down the street. I saw neighbors walking down the street. I saw former celebrities walking down the street. In Abidjan, there was a guy, spitting image of Chuck Berry. I mean, this guy so resembled Chuck Berry that when I stepped to him, I said, man, you know you look like Chuck Berry. And this guy, he looked at me and he responded that, you know, that he heard that all the time. So, blood is thicker than water, and you don't have nothing unless you have water. So the water and the miles that separated African people, that's all it was, is a little water, a little time. And it also affected linguistic patterns. You know, whether it was in French or whether it was in English, whether it was in Spanish, um, there are some linguistic patterns that are native to African speakers, and they bring those patterns to whatever language they're acquiring, whether it's English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Arabic, whatever language. There's certain linguistic patterns that African people have that they bring to the languages. Not just to stick to Africa, African people. I had Italian students. One of my best students was an Italian guy. He demanded a native-born speaker. And I shared with him that some of the African teachers, they may have been more adept in teaching certain things than a native speaker. For example, certain people, certain groups of people, they're more focused on grammar. And you can learn a lot from people that are more focused on grammar than someone that may be more eloquent in, as far as the spoken language. In English and in language acquisition, you have reading, writing, listening, and speaking. You have inputs and outputs. So, one of my French students, who was an executive at the power company, he was giving a presentation in English, and this affected when all of the people in the village in the village, or as the Africans would say, in the bush, when they would get electricity. And I helped train this man to make this presentation. Also, several of, different persons in the government, different business people, when they would go to these meetings in Europe, if they were not able to speak English, they would not be able to advocate for their people. So, learning English and polishing up their English and making them the best English speakers that they could be was quite rewarding for me. And I'm sure that it made a difference to a large group of people, in the sense that if they were able to articulate their wants and their needs in the English language, those wants and needs could get fulfilled. Now, if they were not able to speak English, they couldn't get the certain goods and services that they needed. We have an expression, a closed mouth don't get fed. You see? So that was a component of me sharing my spirit with my students in the terms of idiomatic expressions. So this is just a little introduction on how I get it, how I live every day. So thank you for spending your time with this video. Like, subscribe, and let's get to know each other. I'm available um, for English language learning services, as well as discussions on diasporic Africans and how we relate to one another. And with that, give you the greetings of peace, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and have a wonderful and beautiful day, afternoon, night, and retirement to the sleep realm. Peace.